One of the very first questions we need to answer when assessing a new project is, how much will it cost to build? Estimating is the foundation of every project delivery, so I'm going to show you exactly how you can use ChatGPT to make your estimating faster whilst also being more accurate. We're going to walk through how AI can help you define scope, calculate direct costs, and ensure that every single assumption is included in your estimate, all using a real construction example so you can see the workflow from start to finish. But first, let's start with why estimating is so important. Whenever assessing feasibility, the core question is always the same, and that is, will this project deliver more value than it will cost? And we can't answer that without estimating how much the whole building is actually going to cost. But estimating helps much more than just the feasibility. It helps you compare design options, price lump sum contracts, and make investment decisions. Every major decision in early stage project planning links back to the initial estimate. So the more accurate it can be at the front end, the better your project will run at the back end. And first things first, we can't go about estimating a project if we don't know what the project will entail. What's it going to cover? So before we can cost anything, we need a clear understanding on what we're building. So first, we need to define the project scope. And this is where ChatGPT becomes incredibly useful. And to show you how this works, let's use a practical example. Imagine you're delivering a 750 square meter district cooling network that's feeding a brand new cluster of residential towers. Your preliminary information includes the length, the trench width, the depth, the pipe size, the location, any reinstallment and any additional works, and anything else you can see on the screen here. Normally you break the scope down manually, but with ChatGPT, you can generate a full work breakdown structure in just seconds. So for this example, I would use the prompt you see on screen now. Create a detailed work breakdown structure for a 750 meter district cooling pipeline, etc, etc. ChatGPT will produce a complete work breakdown structure from excavation to pipe laying and everything in between, giving you a clear scope of works. And this is the time to note that you need to double check this to make sure that if anything unnecessary has been added or if anything has been missed. You can always tweak your prompt and have it run the results again. So now we have our scope of works, we can move on to the next step, which is turning each step laid out in the scope into an estimated cost. ChatGPT can help with this by working out the key quantities and the major cost drivers you'd normally calculate manually. Here, we are looking at direct costs only. If you're watching this, you probably already know what direct costs are, but just in case you don't, these are the costs of physically building, and they're the costs that we can alter based on the decisions we make. An example of this would be things like the physical materials to actually construct. To a certain extent, we control direct costs. So using this district cooling example, you can ask ChatGPT to calculate things like the total excavation volume, or how much spoil we will need to be removed, or the length of the pipe to install. You get the idea. It can also suggest the types of labour and the equipment commonly used for this kind of work, which you can then adjust based on your own experience or what your contractors typically provide. And ChatGPT can do even more of the legwork for you. For example, you could ask it to build a first principles estimate by assuming the basic team composition for the work. You could also feed it your own labour or plant rates if you have them. It will recalculate the totals accordingly. The key thing is that ChatGPT can take the quantities, production, assumption and resource type either it identifies or you choose to give it, and turn all of that into a structured direct cost estimate without you having to build it line by line and going through hours of Excel. But of course, direct cost is only half the picture. Every project also has its indirect costs, and for full clarity, these are the costs of supervising, managing and supporting the works themselves. You could call it almost like, think of it like the physical labour, and ChatGPT can help you identify and size these costs. You can follow the prompt on the screen and ask it something like, based on a 12-week program for installing a district cooling pipeline, recommend a supervision, quality assurance and quality control and safety resource required. And in return, it will recommend the number of supervisors, the foreman, the QA inspectors, the safety officers and all the additional support that you may need. You can then layer in the costs for your own rate sheets. So now you have your scope, your direct costs and your indirect costs. It's time to put the entire thing together, but there's a few more factors you need to consider before you do. And the next step is to apply cost markups, profit and contingency. ChatGPT can generate a risk list for your exact scope. Things like utility clashes, traffic permitting delays, pressure test failures, all of that kind of thing. You can then ask, recommend an appropriate contingency percentage for these risks, although the industry standard is usually between 8 and 12%. Once contingency is locked in, you can apply markup and profit. Ask it to apply a 10 to 15% markup for overhead and profit on the total project costs. So not only will you have your entire cost estimate, but you'll also have your final value estimate as well. You can easily decide whether a project is worth pursuing or not. But using AI for estimating is just the start. If you want the exact prompts that I use to get AI to truly understand my project and be able to answer almost any question specifically about my project, then watch this video here.